If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. It would really help the channel, and we have battle reports, boarding actions, and list videos. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. Vertus Praetors are actually good now. I know it's hard to believe. I did not believe it when I first looked at the changes. I was thinking it was a nice buff. Now that I've been making lists and really looking into the unit and the synergy between our detachments, I may sound out of my mind crazy, but the bikes are very good now. Don't close the video just yet. Let me show you a few things that may change your mind. I also have a list video for each detachment. Some of these lists are deadly. The Solar Spearhead list is my favorite of all of them. Buckle up, we're about to get some speed injected into our army. Let's take a look at the new and improved Vertus Praetor Datasheet. It has a movement of 12, a toughness of 7, a 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable, 5 wounds, 6 leadership, and an OC of 2. Their ranged weapons is the salvo launcher, 24-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 2s, strength 10, AP 3, damage D6 plus 1, and it is twin linked. Or you could have the Vertus Hurricane Bolter, 18-inch range, 3 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 4, AP 1, damage 2, and these are rapid fire 3 with twin length. So if we are 9 inches away, we'll be shooting 6 attacks each from these Hurricane Bolters. At AP 1, damage 2, that could pile up. For our melee weapons, it's the Interceptor Lance, 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2. Same profile as the Guardian Spear, except this one has the Lance ability, so you have +1 to the wound roll if you've charged this turn. The Vertus Praetor abilities, Turbo Boost. Each time this unit advances, do not make an advance roll, you just automatically advance 6. And then Quicksilver Execution, which has seen an improvement. Once per battle after this unit ends a normal or advanced move, it used to just be advanced move, you can select one unit, excluding monsters or vehicles that it moved over during that move, and then roll 1d6 for each model in the Vertus Praetor unit. Enemy unit suffers 2 mortal wounds. So it's like an average of 4 mortal wounds with a 3-man, and that is a lot better than the 0 mortal wounds that we used to be doing with this ability. Then we have the Shield Captain on Dawneagle Jetbike, movement of 12, toughness of 7, 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable, 8 wounds, 6 leadership, and 2 OC. It has the same improved guns with the improved salvo launcher and the improved Hurricane Bolter. The Interceptor Lance is the same profile, except it has 6 attacks instead of 5. For abilities, we have Sweeping Advance and Strategic Mastery. Neither of these have seen any changes. The Strategic Mastery allows you to reduce the CP cost of a stratagem once per battle round, and Sweeping Advance once per battle at the end of the fight phase. If this model's unit has fought, if it still is within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, you can make a fallback move. If it is not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, it can make a normal move. And these changes at first glance don't seem like a lot, but when you add them together and start looking to what they really do, it is a huge buff to these units. So let's move on to why these are so good, why the toughness 7 makes a difference, and why the improved shooting makes these so much more deadly. Why does the toughness 7 and 5 wounds matter now? At first glance, you may think that these things are worse than the Venatori. 75 points is too expensive, bikes are still bad, or Custodian Guard are way better. The 5 wounds makes a difference with those damage 2 weapons. The bikes need to fail 3 saves now instead of 2 to be destroyed, and with a 2+ and a 4+ invulnerable, that is a big deal. They can also take a hit from those common damage 3 attacks. 5 fails of those kind of attacks on Custodian Guard will wipe the unit. It takes 6 fail to kill a 3-man unit of Vertus Praetors. And what about that toughness 7? Not a lot of weapons have strength 6, but there are some. And the big thing is strength 12 attacks like las cannons will be wounding on a 3+ instead of a 2+. And overall, this adds a lot of total survivability. And don't forget about the weapons. The Custodian Guard are much less effective off a controlled objective since they can't reroll their wounds. The 3-man bikes have 15 attacks with +1 to the wound roll if they've charged that turn, since they have the Lance ability on their melee weapons. And then you add the 3 shots from the salvo launchers at AP 3, damage D6 +1. Or if you want to run their Hurricane Bolters and you're in rapid fire range, that's 18 shots at AP 1, damage 2, twin linked. And both of these weapons are twin linked now, the salvo launchers and the Hurricane Bolters, which I think always were twin linked. And then a once per game mortal wounds when we move over an enemy unit. This unit has the potential to output more damage than a 3-man Venatori very easily. And then if the Custodian Guard are not on an objective they control, they are not even close either. The lance ability plus the improved shooting is what brings their damage potential up so much. So it's not just the melee attacks, it's the shooting as well from this unit that adds more damage. Let's move on to 4 different detachment lists that's going to be using these new improved Vertus Praetors to add a little speed and shooting to these lists. Let's start these Vertus Praetors lists off with the list I'm most excited to play on the table, the Solar Spearhead Threat Overload list. It comes to 2,000 points, and for all of these lists I have put the Vertus Praetors or the Shield Captains in bold just so it's easy to pick out where I've added these Vertus Praetors. Our Warlord is a Venerable Contemptor Dreadnought with the Honored Fallen enhancement, and the Dreadnought has the Multi-Melta equipped. Our other character is a Blade Champion with the Adamantine Talisman enhancement. For other datasheets, we have a 5-man unit of Custodian Wardens with the Spears in the Vexilla, 2 units of 3 Vertus Praetors with the Hurricane Bolters, 2 more Venerable Contemptor Dreadnoughts with the Multi-Meltas, so that will be a total of 3 Venerable Dreadnoughts, 2 Cladius Grav Tanks with the Heavy Arachnus Blaze Cannon, a unit of Prosecutors, and then finally 2 units of Witch Seekers. And for our allied units, we have the Custodes Assassin. I really like this list. No Shield Captain with these 2 3-man units. The detachment rule does not do anything for these units, so why do I like them so much then? They do have some stratagem support in this Solar Spearhead with 4 out of the 6 stratagems, and then the secret weapon, our Warlord, Captain Reliable. My Warlord Venerable Dreadnought, Captain Reliable, that's right, the Warlord is a Venerable Dreadnought. It also has that enhancement, the Honored Fallen. And since the Solar Spirit allows you to make a walker into a character, we can put this enhancement on this Venerable Dreadnought. An Honored Fallen, it is an aura enhancement for 15 points. While friendly Adeptus Custodes infantry or Adeptus Custodes mounted unit is within 6 inches of the bearer, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, reroll a hit of 1. And this is not wholly within, this is just within 6 inches, so you just need to tag 1 model from your unit, then you'll get that reroll hit of 1 ability. And thus I've dubbed him Captain Reliable. He will hang out around the center of the board, spreading a 6-inch aura of just hit better around. Next we have the 4 stratagems that are available to the Vertus Praetors in this Solar Spearhead. The first one is Unstoppable. In your movement phase, 1 Adeptus Custodes vehicle or mounted unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, models in your unit can move horizontally through models and terrain features. This stratagem is amazing. Yes, we can only use it on 1 unit in our movement phase. It is the threat we want though. These 2 units and 1 or 2 of the Venerable Dreadnoughts behind some line of sight terrain, the enemy has to respect the fact that any of those units can come through those walls and shoot and charge them. The Dreads for another CP could advance and charge as well. We want our opponent to have threat overload, to make a mistake that we can pounce on with our fast army. Which is strange saying for Custodes. There's a lot of advance and charge in this list, and there's a lot of speed in this list. Emperor's Vengeance for 1 CP, pretty simple, a 4+ fight on death. Another potential threat the opponent has to consider. Next is Wrathful Advance for 1 CP. In your fight phase, just after Adeptus Custodes unit from your army piles in, so you can use this on your Vertus Praetors, until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a pile-in move, it can move up to D3+3 instead of 3 inches. With so many good stratagems in this detachment, this is more situational. I do like this stratagem when it comes up though. We want this entire unit to get into engagement range when we charge. We have that +1 to the wound roll on our melee weapons when we make the charge. Making sure we get this whole unit in engagement range is important to maximizing their output. Using this stratagem to make sure we can get all of our units in engagement range is situational, but it can come up and become very useful. The last stratagem is Punishment Inescapable. In our shooting phase, 1 Adeptus Custodes unit. Until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by models in your unit ignore cover, and until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes an attack, you can ignore any modifiers to your ballistic or hit roll. This stratagem is more great synergy with Captain Reliable. All these Hurricane Bolters reroll the hits of 1, ignore cover, twin linked, can be terrifying into light infantry units. With AP 1, damage 2, this can chip away at the tougher targets with volume attacks as well. So that's my Solar Spearhead list, the Threat Overload list. It is my favorite list of all of these, and is the one I'm looking forward to most to playing on the table, just because it's new, and there's a lot of synergy with these enhancements and stratagems. So let's move on to the Auric Champions. Auric Champions. I've named this one Taxi Time. It comes to 2,000 points exactly. Our Warlord is a shield captain in Alaris with the Martial Philosopher enhancement. For other characters, we have another shield captain in Alaris, 3 solo units of shield captains on Dawneagle Jetbikes. They all have the salvo launcher. For other data sheets, we have 2 units of 5 Alaris Terminators. Both of them have the Guardian Spears. We have 2 Land Raiders with the Hunter Killer Missile and the Storm Bolter that you have to add on to there. And then finally, 2 units of Prosecutors. Let's take a look at the detachment rule for the Auric champions and what it does for the shield captains on Dawneagle. The detachment rule is called Assemblage of Might. At the start of your command phase, select 1 unit from your opponent's army, and until the start of your next command phase, each time a model in your Adeptus Custodes character unit from your army makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll. The shield captains on Dawneagle already have +1 to the wound if they've charged that turn from the Lance ability on their melee weapons. The salvo launcher ranged weapons will get that +1 to wound roll, which is pretty big now that they're at strength 10, so if you're shooting at a toughness 10 vehicle, you'll be wounding it on a 3. There is a few key stratagems that will really make these solo shield captains great in the Auric champions. We have Earning a Name for 1 CP, which allows you to select 2 different character units, and then in the fight phase, you can reroll your hits and your wound rolls. Reroll hits and wounds on 6 attacks, hitting on 2's Strength 7, AP2, Damage 2 with that Lance ability. These will also have access to the army roll for sustained hits and lethal hits, so they will do quite a bit of damage to 5-man groups of infantry and other lower toughness enemies. We can also select 2 of these when we use the stratagem, so you can charge 2 of these in, and both have the reroll hits and wounds. For 1 CP, this is one of the better stratagems in the detachment. Emperor's Auspice, you can use this in either the enemy shooting phase or the fight phase, and this is a 4-up, feel no pain. And all these stratagems are character only. This is where the new +1 toughness and +1 to wound will come into play. For 1 CP, now we have a solo model with toughness 7, 8 wounds, a 2-up save with a 4-up invulnerable with a 4-up feel no pain. Very tough to shift without dedicated fire. And like I said, all of the stratagems in Auric champions target your character only, and is why I decided to run these as 3 solo utility characters instead of adding other Vertus Praetors to them. And that's the Auric champions. Solo bike captains are really good in here now. They were already quite decent before, now they're even better. The next detachment list is the Shield Host, and this one is called the Need for Speed. Once again, comes to 2,000 points. Our Warlord is a shield captain on Dawneagle Jetbike with the From Hall of Armories enhancement. We will have salvo launchers on all of our bikes in this list. For our other characters, we have 2 more shield captains on the Dawneagle Jetbike. One has the Panopta Specs enhancement, the other has the Auric Mantle. For other data sheets, we have 3 units of 3 Vertus Praetors with the salvo launchers, a unit of 6 Venatari with 5 lances, and 1 with the Kinetic Destroyer and the Buckler, just for soaking up a little extra damage. 2 more units of 3 Venatari with the Venatari lances, a unit of 4 Prosecutors, and 2 units of 5 Witch Seekers. There's a lot of speed in this list, a lot of pressure, and quite a bit of melee damage. The salvo launchers will add that anti-tank that we do need. They're not as strong as some strength 12 weapons, but the twin linked on the salvo launchers will help. The Shield Host detachment rule is called Martial Mastery. At the start of the battle round, you can select 1 of the bullet points below. If you do so until the start of the next battle round, that bullet point effects apply. The first one is each Adeptus Custodes model with the Martial Kata ability. Melee weapons have the critical hits on 5. Or you could pick Adeptus Custodes models with that Martial Kata ability. Melee weapons have +1 AP. Both of these really increase the melee damage of Adeptus Custodes units in our army. The list has 3 big max units of bikes for a total of 12 when you include the shield captain, and all 3 shield captains have an enhancement. The list will have a lot of melee threat, while the Vertus Praetor salvo launchers will be our anti-tank. We could put Hurricane Bolters on that Panopta Specs shield captain's unit. The Shield Host has several stratagems that pair well with the Vertus Praetors. First, let's take a look at those enhancements that we do have on our shield captains. From Hall of Armories, that is on our Warlord, it adds 1 to the strength and damage of the characteristic of melee weapons. So his melee lance will be strength 8, damage 3 now. Panopta Specs, it allows you to ignore cover when you're using ranged weapons. That's why I consider using the Hurricane Bolters on that particular unit. I do have salvo launchers because you still will ignore cover, but I might put the Hurricane Bolters. I'll play around with this list a little more. And the last enhancement was Auric Mantle, and this one just adds 2 extra wounds to the characteristic. So that shield captain will have 10 wounds. And Shield Host does have several stratagems that pair well with the Vertus Praetors. The first one, multi-potentiality for 1 CP. 1 CP for a fallback, shoot, and charge is a great stratagem for this unit. Fall back and charge back in to get that +1 to wound from the lance ability, and fall back and shoot will actually make a difference now. Most of the time it was fall back and charge what really did our damage. Now with the much improved shooting, we can fall back, shoot, doing some significant damage, and then charge back in. Next we have Arcane Genetic Alchemy, and this stratagem is in any phase when mortal wounds have been allocated. You can use this stratagem to do a 4-up feel no pain to those mortal wounds. It's a great stratagem to use when large amounts of mortal wounds have been allocated to us, and any phase means we can protect ourselves from Overwatch, and GW has FAQ'd this to protect from Doombolt as well. It is a great stratagem to help keep these units safe from mortal wounds. And then last up we have Archaeotech Munitions. In your shooting phase, one of these bikes, they can select either lethal hits or sustain hits 1, and until the end of the phase, ranged weapons equipped by those bikes in the unit have the selected ability. So you can get lethal hits or sustain hits in our ranged attacks. And once again, this does make me think Hurricane Bolters probably is the better selection for using this stratagem, just because you have so many shots at AP1 damage 2. And that is the Shield Host and the stratagems. Let's move on to the Talons of the Emperor. Next up is Talons of the Emperor, and this is a variant on the Folger Piles World Championship winning list. It comes to 1,995 points. Our Warlord is a Blade Champion. For other characters, we have that other Blade Champion, and instead of the third Blade Champion that's usually in this list, we are running the Shield Captain on Dawneagle with the Aegis Projector enhancement, and this one has the Hurricane Bolters. Our battle line, we have a 4-man unit of Custodian Guard with 3 spears and the Vexilla Shield and Misericordia. For other data sheets, we do have the 2 units of 5 Wardens with the Guardian Spears and the Vexilla, a unit of 3 Vertus Praetors with the Hurricane Bolters, the 2 Cladius Grav Tanks with the twin Heavy Blaze Cannons, a unit of Prosecutors, and a unit of Witch Seekers. For dedicated transports, we do have a Psychona Rhino, and allied unit is Kyria Draxus to join up with that Custodian Guard squad. Let's take a look at the Talons of the Emperor detachment rule and how it benefits the Vertus Praetors. It is called Revered Companions. When a Psychona unit is within 6 inches of an Adeptus Custodes model, they will have a 5-up feel no pain to mortal wounds and psychic damage. Any other Custodes unit that is not a Psychona unit, when they are within 6 inches of a Psychona unit, that Psychona unit will get +1 to the hit roll. So this adds a 5-up feel no pain to mortal wounds to these bikes if we are within 6 inches of any of these Psychona units in the list. The Shield Captain on Dawneagle has the Aegis Projector enhancement to give the unit a fair bit of extra survivability. Once per turn, the first time a saving throw is failed for the Barracks unit, you can change the damage of the attack to 0. And this is big because it's once per turn, not once per battle round, so you can use this in your turn and the opponent's turn. The strong stratagems in the Talons of the Emperor makes the Shield Captain on Dawneagle's Strategic Mastery ability to reduce the stratagem cost by 1, something we will use every battle round. And let's take a look at some of these strong stratagems for the Vertus Praetors. The first one, Talon Pincer for 1 CP. In the opponent's movement phase, when an enemy unit ends a normal advance or fallback move within 9 inches of any of these Vertus Praetors, we can do a normal 6-inch reactive move. This is a big one. A reactive 6-inch move will be great for helping keep these units on the board longer. They have the fly keyword, so we can move over enemy units with this reactive move. This will be a strong choice for strategic mastery. Hunt as 1 is our simple fallback, shoot and charge, and this is much more effective with the better shooting in the lance ability in melee, so we can fall back, use our better shooting, and then charge back in. Can't go wrong with this stratagem. It is a great stratagem to have for these Vertus Praetors. Fall back, shoot and charge. Empiric Severance for 1 CP, it's in your opponent's shooting or the fight phase. You do have to be within 6 inches of a Psychona unit. It'll give you a 4+ feel no pain instead of the 5+ feel no pain from the detachment rule. And this stratagem does require us to be within 6 inches of that Psychona unit. We want to use this when we'll be taking a large amount of mortal wounds. Being hit by the grenade stratagem, it's not really worth the 1 CP for that feel no pain upgrade, since we already have the 5-up feel no pain if we are within 6 inches to use this stratagem. A big bunch of potential incoming mortal wounds from some flamer attacks, we may want to spend the 1 CP to upgrade this to the 4-up feel no pain. It's not a stratagem that we'll be using a lot, but it's a good tool to have in the toolbox when we need it. There is also a stratagem in the Talons of the Emperor, Emperor's Executioners. It adds +1 to the wound in melee, but this unit already has that when we charge with the Lance ability on their melee weapons, and it is an expensive 2 CP, so it's not a stratagem we're really going to be using a lot with these Vertus Praetors. And that's all the list for the 4 detachments, so let's move on to some final thoughts. I hope this video gives you some thought about taking some Vertus Praetors in your list. These units with all the buffs and the small points increase are exactly what we needed to balance out the Codex. They add some dynamic to the list for those who did not have the Venetari or desire to collect Forge World. Now they have a speedy unit that does do quite a bit of damage, and they're not stuck paying these expensive Forge World prices. These bikes can take the place of Venetari. Venetari do fill a slightly different role with their rapid ingress ability, but they're still fast attack units that hit quite hard. Which of these lists interests you the most? Which changes would you make to any of these lists? Throw it in the comments. Subscribe for weekly battle reports, list videos, boarding actions, and other Warhammer 40K content. And like I always say, thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.